Boker Tov, Rabbi.
How are you?
Great.
So we haven't done a podcast for a long time. It's been
A few weeks, yes.
the high holidays,
Mhm.
and so therefore we're starting today, but obviously a lot of somber news, and we don't tell anybody. Today is the 15th of October. That is a week after the
8 days, but yes.
the 8 days, and so Itai, what is your feeling about the thing? Would you want to express your feelings? What do you want to say about it? Anything?
There's so much to say about it. I think there is a state of confusion.
So, but which angle are we going to take now? Which angle are we going to look at this? There's the obvious narrative, which is okay. There were terrorists came into Israel. They somehow managed to find a way in, which very strange. There was no army around. Very strange. They had 6 hours before any response. Very strange. And 12 to 1,300 people died, and 150 people are still held in captives. The Israelis are now bombing, decimating the northern part of Gaza more than the south. They've requested all the people to move to the south. So that's all known. We don't have to discuss that. Okay? Because everybody's going to say, and who's right and who's wrong. Obviously, anybody has a moral compass. Hamas is 1,000% wrong, for what they did.
I agree, yeah. That was an act of Nazism.
Yeah.
This is a Shoah,
there's no, but which angle should we look at this? How should we look at this? Should we look at what should be our response? Should we look at maybe have some conspiracy theories why it happened? What the Jewish people attitude should be towards the situation at the moment, or how people in general should be, or which I would rather look at that angle, what our response should be, and maybe say possibilities on what we think the future holds. I don't know.
I would like actually to take, if it's possible, with you, because there's so much to say about it and about everything you said, and I think that it probably requires many, many hours of podcast just to speak about it. And some of the ideas or some of the things that I'm going to say are going to be probably very polarizing. And I would like actually to know, if you don't mind, from spiritual point of view,
Yes.
What should be the attitude toward it?
Okay.
Because that's something that we are not, there hasn't been discussed so much. Of course, you hear it a lot, and there are people in the Israeli army fighting from all parts of society. Some of them so-called secular, some of them religious people, Kippa Sruga, Zionist, and Mizrahi, whatever you want to call it, and everyone is fighting together. But from spiritual point of view, I got to say that what is fascinating, and I think that people who try to understand from the outside, outsiders who are not Jewish, not Israelis and not Jewish, they try to figure out what is going on. And actually people who do care about figuring it out, because unfortunately I've seen a lot of lack of symmetry in the response of European people that I know. We already know, I think, that there is that free Palestine. And you remember we did a little podcast about it in the past, because you had an incident. Some people were very.
And by the way, I've had a lot of incidents.
I'm sure. Look, it's very dangerous as well, especially for you, as you look as what they can identify as a Jew. I can walk in the street if I'm not going with a yarmulke, or if I go with a hat instead of a yarmulke. They might see, okay, maybe he's Italian, maybe he's Spanish, maybe he's Turkish, maybe he's this and that, whatever. But you look like a rabbi. You are a rabbi, so you are a target, and it's very dangerous. And London is a dangerous place for Jewish people, especially at this time. And when I see some of my so-called European so-called friends, I see how they react to that, and we see the lack of symmetry. People will talk all day long, or they talk about Gaza, but they will not say one word about what happened with the massacre, with the Holocaust-style massacre that happened in Israel. I don't have an issue with people who actually care about the suffering of people, meaning that the suffering of the people in Gaza and also end of suffer of the people in Israel. If you are actually a human being and you care about these things, then I can understand and I can relate. I can discuss with you. I can debate the other things. We can debate what should be the consequences of the actions of Hamas, but I will not accept the lack of symmetry that I see. I see mothers who got kids. I have some people that I know, some people that I know as friends on my social media, whatever you want, and they are all the way through, support for Gaza and say nothing about what happened in Israel. Nothing. And for me, this is the anti-Semitism at its very best. They maybe don't realize it, and they probably think that they got all the excuses, and they're actually rooting for the underdog. They're rooting for the people who suffer, and but they also show anti-Semitism, and they are doing it. They are supporting for the wrong reasons, as far as I'm concerned. But so this is what I can say to you about it. But on the other end, I remember coming here on Shabbat, which was 2 days ago because it was Friday night, and you received me with singing and dancing and so much happiness. And this is something that I would like actually to talk about, if anything, because we can sit here and talk about conspiracy theories, and we can talk about many things, and maybe we should as well. But I would like to see this from your point of view, from this Chabad point of view, from the Rebbe point of view, how we deal with Gzera like that.
Very good question.
Yes.
So we have to understand that anything that happens in the world from the physical, is definitely rooted from the spiritual. And therefore, the fact that this happened, it means we have to be introspective. And we have to realize that for some reason we were spiritually vulnerable, extremely spiritual, whatever, yeah? And all that's happening in Israel in the past 6 months to a year, we all know what's happening with all the infighting and that. So there was
between the people themselves. I want it to be clear for anyone who is watching it who is not Israeli, not Jewish. People fighting each other non-stop about because of the Supreme Court, because
we're going through a democratic process at the moment. Each side is trying to, and there's a lot of hate or whatever. And when there's a hate amongst Jews, it causes our spiritual defense to come down.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So we're already vulnerable from that point of view. As soon as we started to hate each other, this guy is religious, this guy's irreligious, that divide, or this guy's right wing, left wing, you're not Jewish, I'm not, I don't want to be. That absolutely, from a spiritual point of view, I can tell you that is the root cause of what happened.
I want to interject quickly because I want you to continue because it's fascinating. There is one of the, apparently, according to the media, I remember in the very first days they captured one of the, or they saw a post by one of the Hamas people, and he said when they saw the demonstrations, they realized that this is the right time. When they saw so many protesting of the Israeli people, they realized this is a good time to start.
Yeah, they saw our vulnerability. We were vulnerable. People were hating each other. And they also, whatever, I don't know, just from a political point of view, the army was saying they're not going to go, on Miluim. What Miluim means?
Yeah, of course, I remember.
The reserve force. But that's more practical. But I'm saying more from a real spiritual level. Even the protests, the hate that's brewing amongst the Jewish people caused us to be vulnerable. Now, I'm not saying that, Hamas has a free choice to do whatever they want. I'm not saying, but it made us vulnerable, made us protection. A bit like when you have a mezuzah, on your door, if it's not kosher, it makes you vulnerable. Therefore, you need to be.
We didn't have a spiritual shield.
Correct. And therefore, when I said I wanted to hear conspiracy theories, because you can ask everybody, they can say to you, it's because they weren't respecting Netanyahu, that's why they never had the army. You have the other side that says, no, it was all, in order to get Netanyahu out the government, or Netanyahu wanted to be a mayor of control. There's so many different conspiracies, but I'm telling you now, with all those conspiracy theories, the reason why they were able to get in, purely because we were spiritually vulnerable. Now, how does Chabad and how does the Rebbe look at this situation? So, Chabad looks at the situation, and the Rebbe looked at the situation is that like this. Prior to the 6-Day War, prior to the 73-year war, prior to the 82 war, most of the wars, the Rebbe always came out with the following messages. A, we have to strengthen in the mitzvah of tefillin.
Tefillin commandment.
Tefillin commandment. Why tefillin commandment? Why tefillin commandment? Because it says that in the Talmud that the tefillin shel rosh, the head tefillin, somehow subconsciously puts fear in our enemies. That means each enemy of the Jewish people has a certain angel that looks after them. Are you aware of that?
Listen, I wanna communicate with that idea.
Each enemy, each country, and therefore, when the Jewish people put on the tefillin shel rosh and the tefillin, it kind of scares that angel, that angel subconsciously therefore weakens the position of our
I believe it, by the way.
And the Rebbe came out like that in the 67 war. Just before the 67 war, when everybody was afraid, which is very similar to today. I don't know how they were then, I wasn't born, but a lot of people are afraid. The Rebbe said, go put on tefillin as many people as you can, because this will make the other side more afraid. And it worked. 6 days later, we had we had a huge victory. Prior to 73, the Rebbe came out and said like this, that for some reason, a couple of months before, he was telling everybody that we should get the children should make rallies, and they should say words of Torah and Tehillim and the Psukim, Torah, and it was very strange because the Rebbe never used to do that. He was saying every day the children should say group Tehillim, and then the 6 Day War happened. So the Rebbe came out afterwards and explained that the reason why he told us, the people, and he never revealed it before. He just, before the 6th Day War happened, 3 months before, he was pushing this, but he never told why. He said now that the war happened, he realized why he had this intuition. Why? Is because the children, it says that the children, they are pure and innocent. They are not bound by any sin. And therefore, any words of Torah or any psalms or prayer is accepted above. It doesn't come with any baggage. You understand? And unfortunately, there's a lot of kids that are now kidnapped and are being held. 3-4 year olds are being terrorized by the innocent Palestinian kids who are being terrorized, and they are being, if you want to call it, responsible for their governments. These little kids, and the Rebbe said that these are the ones. If they say words of Torah and they say words of of Psalm, they have a power upstairs to eradicate this Gezerah. Also, kids have the power to unify people. Doesn't make a difference. When people see kids, they don't see religious, irreligious. They just see kids. Yeah? And that has a very unifying property also. And that's another thing we need to do. We need to get kids to come together and start building up the spiritual walls again. The third thing the Rebbe said very clearly, which was after the Yom Kippur War, and a lot of it is like this. This is what I'm going to say now, people are going to might have an issue with, but it's very important, and which you experienced on Friday night, is that we have a concept that joy breaks boundaries, and we have to be joyous in our service of Hashem. One of the reasons why the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed was because they never had joy. Are you aware of that? In their service of God, and we have to have joy. Even
they looked at it as a task. That's what you're trying to say. They didn't look at it as something that you have to do with joy and fulfilling the will of the Creator.
They weren't joyous, and therefore the Rebbe said we have to go out and serve God with joy. Yeah, extreme joy, and we have to dance, because it's only through joy, not melancholy, that we are going to be able to overcome what the fear that everybody's experiencing.
And that, of course,
because fear is the root of the
mind killer. Yeah.
It's a mind killer. It's you lose the war or whatever, you lose your position once you have fear. So therefore, joy is extremely important. That's why when you came in here, I was singing and dancing. I sang the whole night. I don't know if you because we have the The fourth thing is about strengthening our love of our fellow Jew. That is the root of all this problem. One of the roots. If we can love our fellow Jew, doesn't mean that you have to agree with him. But it means like this. It means you have him at your table. You say, I disagree with you. L'chaim. It's your life. When you have a drink, you understand? And the last thing which he said now, a lot of things that I've mentioned is mainly by Jews, right? The last thing that the Rebbe said, especially in the 1991 war, the Gulf War, was do acts of goodness and kindness for others. And that means, which I don't know if I told you, it means to smile at somebody else, greet somebody which you've never greeted before. Maybe you see them many times. just even saying hello, making somebody's life a little bit better. Because all of these that I've mentioned are acts of light. That a little bit of light can dispel a lot of darkness. Like you can have a room which has no windows, no curtains, and it's the middle of the night, yeah? And it's dark, dark, dark. You could say,
if you put a little candle,
a
it's
little,
very
a
powerful.
little. Because some people say, what
much more
help?
visible than
Yes, so some people can argue by me saying hello to somebody else. How does that stop a Hamas terrorist flying over and killing somebody? Because that is complete darkness, and your smiling is a little bit of light. And that little bit of light can dispel a lot more darkness than the darkness itself. And those are the spiritual responses that we have to have. And that's why we have to be joyous, and we have to realize that Hashem is protecting us, that Hashem's eyes are always on Eretz Yisrael. It says it from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And do not be fearful from these cowards. Hamas are cowards.
They are the greatest cowards.
These people who come in the street and stop next to me and hoot and say, free, free Palestine, they're cowards. They're anti-Semites. They should 100%. Not bring fear into you. And we should
any European that goes along with that is an anti-Semite as well. It goes back all the way to his ancestors, their ancestors. Just that you'll know, yes, when you're doing it, just that you'll know, when you are supporting with no symmetry, when you cannot understand the side of the suffering of the Israelis. And I'm not telling you again to be oblivious to the suffering of anyone, any human being. It doesn't need to be a Jew, it can be a Muslim. And I will never be oblivious to the suffering of people, not Muslims either. So I'm just telling you. I have to give you 2 points that I absolutely agree with you. You remember, I think I said it, but I'll say it now, of course, because it's in private conversations and here and there, some anecdotes. I remember when I was a kid growing up in Israel, very young, starting to read at a very young age, and that's where we received a book from school with some stories. And one of the only sentence from a story that stuck in my head from that time, and it's a long time ago. It's about a Jewish man in the ghetto under the Nazi occupation, before the camps, before they were exterminated. And he said something like he makes jokes about this thing and that thing, and they got nothing to eat, and the situation is terrible. I remember he speaks about them eating a bit of potato. They managed to find a potato, and now they cut it to pieces and try to make a king's meal out of a potato leftovers, whatever. And he said something, he makes a joke, and he said something like, and I can never forget it, that he tried to explain to anyone who is reading that you got to be happy. You got to be filled with joy, even if you are in the pit of hell, in the abyss. And that was the abyss.
Because then you live.
Yeah, exactly. And and thanks God, the fact that we are here is because we haven't lost. And I know, because again, like I said to you, my grandparents from my father's side were Holocaust survivors, and my grandfather, Baruch Hashem, kept his faith in God, and that was the true winning. But another thing I would like to tell you is that when your son and his nephew, cousin, sorry, when with his cousin came to see me on Friday for Tefillin, I told his cousin, I said to him, I was in a Shacharit on just a day, maybe on Monday it was, so it's very fresh and very shocking. It's still shocking. People in a state of shock. So I went to do Shacharit. I felt you have to do Shacharit anyway as a Jew, but I felt that this is a very important occasion. So we were sitting there, and we were waiting for the 10th man. We waited more than any other time that I remember Shacharit. And finally the 10th man came. And I remember I told the cousin, look, it was a very stoic, very quiet, very dramatic Shacharit for me. And he said to me, yes, okay, but you have to be joyful as well about it. He could understand, he could relate to my description, and I think that it was exactly how I felt about it, and it was something about it very powerful. You say it's almost me seeing all the way back into my ancestors, which I always do anyway, but especially in that moment, it's almost like I could connect with so many things. And I saw the other people sitting in the shacharit waiting for the 10th man, very quietly, very quietly. Everyone is in their own, lost in their
like
thoughts.
Processing.
But what the cousin said was very good. He said, like, but you have to also do things with joy and remember. You understand?
Yeah, 100%. This is the novelty that you'll hear by Chabad. I'm not sure if you'll hear by any other
other organization. That's something that I see
at
a lot
the moment. at the moment in the situation. And this is the Rebbe's approach, and this is Chabad's approach, and this is really essentially the Jewish approach to these things, I believe.
I can see the point. I can see the point. I maybe it's difficult. It really depends. Sometimes we also refer to this type of joy almost as naivety, almost as someone who is disconnected from reality. So this is why we don't like it. You understand? This is why it's difficult to go along with it, because you say, oh, yeah, this person doesn't realize what's going on.
Yeah.
No, but
rather let's be depressed. When you actually think about it, what these animals did was beyond reality.
Yeah, of course.
The only way to counter beyond reality is to be beyond reality, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when you have a negative beyond reality, from a spiritual point of view, you should be beyond reality, be joyous. And very interesting enough, a lot of the messages that the soldiers were saying themselves, that are at the moment stationed on the border, were also saying, please be joyous this Shabbat, because I can't participate in my usual Shabbat meal and my Shabbat festivities. But you who can, please be as joyous and as energetic as you can.
Listen, as long as we exist, and we will exist, because that was told us as a promise, and we did, and we will continue existing. It will always be a spiritual war, always. And as long as we are going to capture and hold to our spiritual strength, then we are going to be invincible. It doesn't matter. Again, Gzerot and everything that comes at us. That's the way I see it. But it's not a physical war. Yes, weapons and certain means that you have to use in order to defend yourself, definitely, but it's a spiritual war at the beginning and the end. And I think that Hamas, at least at its very core, I don't know about them today because they don't strike me as the same Hamas they used to be. They realize it as well. They know it. They know actually that the strength of this nation, our nation, will only be in our spiritual we're going to be. And the moment that we are going to be not spiritual, this is when we are weak, and this is why they attack.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's why they picked it. The Hamas, they as you
they
said
know it. Yeah, they know it. They know it very well. I remember I told you that I was reading a bit into Khomeini. When he did the revolution in Iran happened, and he wrote about it. He was a spiritual leader, Khomeini, and he said something like, "We should protect the Jews within us." But of course, they looked at Zionism as an enemy. So that's not me, by the way, trying to support his ideas or whatever, but I just want to show that he knew very well, you understand, that as long as we are Jews, because he referred to us as Jews when he's separating the concepts. So he tries to say he's a Jew, so he is following Moses, he's following Moshe. As long as he's there, he realizes how much power we got. Even if he believes that the Quran is the ultimate final word about everything, about the order in the world.
Yeah.
From God's point of view. Still, you understand? So this is our enemies. They speak like that.
Yeah, I totally 100% agree. I just want to mention another thing that you mentioned about your European friends, which are
friends,
whatever. What's very interesting, if we just take out the spiritual side of things, but look at it from a practical point of view, that if you asked all these people, what do you think about LGBTQ plus XYZ, they would say, yes, absolutely. We think that everything should be.
They support everything that is progressive in their.
Do they not realize that if I had to put the Israel and Gaza, even the moderates in Gaza, and we had to say which one of these countries more aligned with their values, right?
Obviously, Tel Aviv is probably the capital of LGBTQ. I was told that, by the way, by a gay person a long time ago from Amsterdam, which Amsterdam, for anyone who knows Amsterdam, knows that it's a city with no boundaries when it comes to these things. Yeah. And this man told me, probably got liking as well to the men in Israel, but he also told me that this is the safest place for gay people, Tel Aviv.
Yeah. Whether we can argue whether that's spiritual or not, but that's a different conversation.
That's a different.
But what I'm trying to say is that you have many people that are coming and supporting the
because they're ignorant. Look,
I understand, but nobody.
Most ignorant people in the world.
They
are the most ignorant.
But this is why I say people. But this is why I say that behind the support of the Palestinians is anti-Semitism.
Of course it's anti-Semitism.
To be fair, I'm going to say not necessarily by the people who live there, because maybe the people who live there might have a.
I'm not talking about
I'm talking about the English
People who got
European
nothing,
Nazis
don't
don't.
understand this conflict at all, and they just all do
Yeah.
it, and they pick a side,
Yeah.
and they pick it with vengeance. In that sense,
Correct.
that they are just so adamant to hold it on.
Yeah.
Look, you remember I told you the story. I mean, again, you get more than me when it comes to anti-Semitism because it's very easy to identify you. That shows how horrific the situation is, really. And before all this event as well. Now it's just escalating and probably will escalate it even further. But I'm just trying to say, I remember, maybe I told you the story that weeks ago when I had to move by one of the stations, Ivory Station, there was a few people singing together. It was when they had there was another thing, some sort of another conflict with Gaza, I believe, or maybe with the West Bank. I'm not sure about it really. That's the thing. I'm trying not to follow the news from Israel. But then now it's impossible not to follow. Yeah, but coming back to the situation, because I would like to talk about it as well. I would like to talk to some of our maybe European friends to tell them what is going on Facebook so they will understand the level of the tragedy. Maybe they will think twice. So anyway, but before that, I'll just say that I was passing by Ivory Islington station and then I saw this bunch of people singing so sweetly, like they're in the church, like they're like doing some sort of a weekend singing together. Old people, all of them white, all of them look very English, and they were singing about how Israel is such a bad state, better than what it does to the Palestinians. Look, for me, I could see in that an exhibition of anti-Semitism because they were not even. You see, that's the difference as well between us and them because you can live with such a tragedy that happened to us to 1,300 people just like that and still go and dance and be happy, and they speak with such a anger in them, and they are not even part of it. They just speak with anger. They don't speak with from any human point of view. They don't speak from compassion. They just speak in a way, they sing in a way that made me sick. You understand? To listen to them.
I know.
And the only thing, yes, I'm telling you.
Can I tell you something? That the solution to anti-Semitism in this country, yes, you can phone the police and the CSD, but you know what the solution is? To be more Jewish.
I agree.
To be more religious.
No, I agree with you. That's what I said.
To wear the yarmulke, to wear your kippot out, to wear your tzitzit out, and if you don't wear kippah, start wearing a kippah. If you don't wear tzitzit, start wearing tzitzit out. They have a war, their war in the UK, I can only speak for the UK, to prevent us. I mean, I'm hearing everybody, no, people didn't come to shul that much. They kept their children
away.
People
are worried, of course.
People are scared. They're fearful. They are producing this fear, right? And our counteract should be, we are not fearful. We are Jewish. We are going to walk in the street. We're going to have our tzitzit out. We're going to have our yarmulke out. We're going to be proud Jews outside. We're going to go to the shul Shabbat, and no one's going to stop us. And by being proud, that will counteract the fear.
I can see
that's what I can understand that people are fearful but I think
you should be careful.
Yes, we have to
be conscious, alert, definitely.
But to be fair, this Shabbat was one of the few Shabbat that we only had one small incident, but the rest of it was pretty quiet.
But you had incident?
Yeah, incident on the way back from shul, but it was
very
walking in the street. Yeah. But it was very mild.
You can speak about it if you want.
No, it was very mild. It wasn't like it wasn't so confrontational. It was more like from across the street and then just like spouting a little bit of stuff. But it wasn't as venomous as it was last week. But I'm not saying don't be cautious, but we have to start being proud Jews. And remember that. And everybody has to remember this, even though if you are pro-Palestine and you're watching this and you're an anti-Semite.
I want people who are pro-Palestine to watch.
I'm not anti-Palestinians. I'm talking about the whole movement in the UK, the pro-Palestinian movement here. I think is anti-Semitic. I've already voiced my opinion on it. Yeah. You can watch that video to figure out why I am. But what I'm saying is that those people, who are pro-Palestinian, and in the UK, just and producing all this fear to us. Yeah.
I understand. Yes.
They should realize the following: one, you're not the first people to try and eradicate the Jews.
Yes, exactly.
You're not.
Seen it before.
And even if you're going to say, now is different, every single one of them thought now is different. Exactly. From Nebuchadnezzar to the Romans, to the Greeks, to the Persians, to the Egyptians, to the Nazis. Remember the Nazis that people thought?
And we still got people alive.
To the Spanish Inquisition.
Exactly.
to the to the
There will be
British,
no
the English.
excuse. No, there's no
Every
excuse for what they did.
single one of you tried. It will never happen.
Never.
There's no point of even trying and thinking you'll have a different outcome.
But I just wanted exactly. But I want them to know that this is exactly how they behave. I want them to know
That's right.
that this is exactly how they behave.
They behave, yeah.
And they consider and they think about themselves as progressive,
These
and they think about themselves as people who care for
This
the
is not.
life.
This is not progressive. This is absolutely in line with
Regressive,
Nazis.
yeah.
These are Nazis. You are aligning yourself. Anybody who aligns themselves currently with the pro-Palestinian movement in the UK is a Nazi. 100% a Nazi. You want to come and sit and have a discussion with me, then you're not.
You are more than welcome, by the way.
You're
I
not
would
a
love
Nazi.
people who watch it.
You're not a Nazi
someone
because
who
you know what?
actually-
You're not going out in the street and you're not shouting "Free, free Palestine from the river to the sea." That is genocide. Yeah, that is genocide of note. You want to come and have a conversation with me in my house and we can discuss the different things, I'll respect you. That's fine. To shout from outside the street you're a Nazi and anti-Semite, I have no time for you. And by the way, I've had many discussions with many people. Yeah. And to have one-on-one, but if these people don't want discussions, they just want to just say these genocidal,
because they are moved by anger.
This genocidal statement. And the fact that that your regular English individual stands up for this, I'm not saying that all do, or even joins this movement, he is an anti-Semite.
Yes.
And if you want to argue with me, that's fine. But I'm telling you from my perspective, you are a Nazi and an anti-Semite. That's all I want to say about that.
I'm glad you said it, because people should be aware of what they are doing, what they are taking with them, and what they are when they are expressing this type of opinions. What is the consequences? What are the consequences?
Yeah. If, by the way, if you are from Palestine and or whatever they call it Palestine, but if you are from the Gaza, let's say you are from there, then maybe if you don't say from the river to the sea and you say free Palestine, I have a lot more time for you. I have a lot more time for that individual, that person who lives in such, because of, I believe, I believe that the reason why they live in such bad conditions over there, and it's my opinion, is not because of the Israeli occupation and because of, as they call it, the siege. I believe it's because of Hamas and its own leaders. Because if they would take the responsibility and use all the money instead of buying 20,000, create 30,000 rockets in these tunnels and use it for infrastructure for their people and give their people food and stop blaming your problems on others, then there wouldn't be this issue. But if in any event, if you have a Palestinian person from Palestine, from Gaza, and he comes and he wants to, it's his own land, okay, maybe not. And he doesn't say from the river to the sea, right? That stupid song. Then okay, there might be I can handle that. I can say, okay, this guy is this individual, another guy, might not be anti-Semitic. He's genuine. He whatever. He's been fed a bit of lies, according to my opinion. But yeah, you understand what I'm saying?
Of course, I understand.
But anybody
I can
else,
respect it much more.
I can respect it much more. But anybody else is an absolute anti-Semite.
It is
Absolute to the core, and a Nazi that never existed before Nazi like this since the Nazis of 1945.
It's very sad. Someone said, I forgot who was it, that but I can only agree with it. It's actually a disease. It's an illness, anti-Semitism, and it's genetically, it's epigenetic in some people, and they really have to work on themselves in order to get, because we can carry some things genetically, like for example, some people were born with, let's say, problems with their heart in the family. His father, his grandfather, his uncle, everyone got problem with their heart. So he knows that he should be careful. Maybe he should take a different lifestyle. Maybe he should care more about his nutrition, not smoke, do certain things in order to prevent, not to become one more member of the family suffering from heart. But that's the way I look at anti-Semitism. Yeah. So there is a way maybe for you to undo the anti-Semitism that is so deep inside you. But the more that you are going to continue shouting what you are shouting, and the more that you are going to continue with this lack of symmetry, then you are not cured. In fact, you are just continuing and prolonging the problem.
Yeah. But as I said before, our spiritual war against the anti-Semitism happening now to be more Jewish.
Yes, I agree with you.
And do not believe that our way to save us from the anti-Semitism is more security, because that's only one element.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You've got to strengthen what makes us the nation of Israel, what makes us survived for the last 2,000-3,000 years is only through our connection with the Torah and the mitzvot and Hashem.
And all the empires,
it's just a fact.
And I just want to tell people, and we spoke about it in the past, look, for us, we live this thing. It's not just after such a Shoah, Holocaust type of event. We live it. I live the Holocaust every day. I know that your ancestors from a bit of a different place and situation, they haven't experienced the Holocaust, but there is a reason why they had to move from the place where they live to another place. Europeans.
Yeah.
In this case, yes, I'm a mixture, but I'm European from my father's side. And I can tell you that, again, spiritually, we are going to continue being strong, and no one, and all the empires that try to get rid of us, empires with the best weapons, with the best scholars,
the most
with the most, like, take for example, you know how much
and the most sophisticated cultures also.
Of course,
Greek,
yeah, the Greek. That's what I was about to say. You know how much I'm interested in the Greek culture when it comes to mathematics, geometry, Archimedes, Euclid. So many great, incredible people, thinkers, you know, the best thinkers, and they had great. Archimedes was. They say about him that I like his mathematics. I don't care so much about the inventor, but he apparently invented machines of destruction in order to protect his people. You understand? He was also some sort of a military engineer, and they talk about some things that sound even imaginary that he managed to achieve. But he was a constructor of war machines, and all these things, all these incredible achievements, and believe me, the mind of the man, Archimedes, was above and beyond. It's as close as you can get, I will not say godly mind, but it's as far as you can get as a human being. And yet, look at us. All these empires try to do so much harm to us. If it's the Greeks, if the Romans, the Persians, the Egyptians, and then the Nazis, which there are still few people, exactly, still people walking among us. Not many, because they are very old, but they actually remember what happened during the Second World War. I know some people who are still around, you know, when you speak to them and they remember, they were very young, what it was under the Nazi occupation being a Jew. So just always remember, you can never defeat us. Never.
It's just not going to happen.
Yes. So
better
for you to, yeah, exactly, and better for you to be on the side of, better for you to be on the side of God.
Yeah.
And by the way, I just got to say that I had in the past, not so much now, but in the past I had a chance to speak with Muslim people, very devoted Muslim people who go to the mosque, who look the act and actually live the act. And when you speak with them with God from godly point of view, you see that there is so much understanding. You know what? You understand what I'm saying? There is so much understanding when you speak to them. But when you go to all these earthly things, like, again, when you talk about politics, when you talk about things that are creating division, things that, and again, progressive stuff, this is where you can see that they are reluctant to communicate with you. Because this is when the conversation is honest and you have the godly knowledge in you. And I'm not a rabbi, but I do care about the Torah and I do care about it. So when you communicate with someone who is actually in line with the Quran, there is a very good discussion. You remember we wanted in the past as well
absolutely,
to make a debate about it.
Not even a debate, a discussion. You know,
yes.
I think anybody who has true godly
values yes, understand it. But these people that I see now, unfortunately, because you have to remember another thing. That's what I wanted to say before about Facebook. Look, I stayed away from the news, and I hate the news anyway. I don't believe the news. I'm just following certain things, and then I'm analyzing. I'm doing my own breakdown of it. And I don't believe the media in general, but I use whatever I see in order to create my own conclusions out of it, deduce my own conclusions. Okay. But Facebook is another thing that I haven't been using for whatever personal reasons for some time, and I came back on Facebook, and believe me, I got a lot of Israeli friends, and every person, almost everyone knows someone who got murdered. And these people were not soldiers, some of them soldiers, but there were a lot of civilians there, young people, women. I'm not talking about what the media tells you. I'm not talking about that, because you might talk about it, you say, oh, this is a propaganda, this is that, they're showing us things like that, that's fake news. That exists from both sides. But I can tell you that people I see on Facebook, they know someone, I know many people personally, that either their friends or someone from the family is murdered or missing. So just that you know, but you don't care, right? I mean, you post one thing, that's it. So what can I say else? Do you want to do? Is there anything? Look, we can break it down forever. I see some news edition of the news. They go for 17 hours in Israel. 17 hours of news, and it's still going on.
Yeah, because they analyze it. I think that's a good. I think it's a good conclusion. I think we've summed it up really well. We looking at it from a spiritual point of view. What the solutions are from a spiritual point of view. What we need to do to counteract this spiritual darkness. Just little lights, smile at somebody, do a good thing for somebody. Even though somebody might not like, and through that we'll get through this darkness.
תודה רבה.
תודה רבה.
בעזרת השם, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.